Words have immense power, and so do stories. If today my story can inspire or encourage any one of you present here to discover your own unique story, I'll be very happy. Hi, I'm Siddharth Chauhan, an independent writer, director and producer based in Shimla. Yes, I'm based in Shimla, not in Mumbai. So when I wanted to start out and write and direct and make films back in Shimla, everybody told me that you have to go to Mumbai. That's the place you have to be. And I was a rebel at heart. So don't want to say this, but yeah, I actually wanted to prove it wrong. That's how I started. I wanted to tell them all that please mind your own business and let me do my work. That's how I started. Because somehow I just could not understand the ideology that why do you have to be in a particular place in order to do what you want to do. It just did not go well with me. Anyways, we live in a country where artists are doomed. I think all of us are born artists, but somehow while we are growing up, we kill that artist inside us. So artists are supposed to be doomed for ruin, doomed for failure, doomed to be found on the streets one day begging. I don't know why, but such is the prevalent belief in our country, or maybe the entire world. I did not believe in this story, and I totally refused to walk on this path. And I thought that okay, I'm going to write a different story for myself. It's my humble request to all of you also to please not believe in this story and to write a different story for yourself. Now, I don't have a great success story to share with you all because I feel I have not reached that point yet. But I do have certain experiences which I'd like to share with you all, with the hope that just the way I've been able to treasure them, they might help you in identifying your unique story. So I'd like to begin from the time when I was in class 6th. I used to be such a dumb child that when my winter vacations would finish and I would enter my school, maybe many of you will be able to relate to this, I would totally forget how to write or even speak. So the first few weeks were very embarrassing for me. And when I would just try to run away from all my teachers. This was the time when I encountered the Buddhist philosophy in my life, which totally transformed the way I think and the way I look at life. It somehow taught me how to not give up and how to win, and it taught me about the great potential which I had in my life. Honestly saying, till then, I never thought I was good for anything. Fast forward to class 8th. I decided to overcome my phobia of public speaking, and this is when I went for an audition for an elocution competition which was happening in my school. So I was thrown out of there. I was so bad. But somehow I just could not accept the fact that this is my phobia and I'm not getting an opportunity to overcome it. So I really thought about it that, what should I do? How should I convince my teacher? And the next day I went up to her and I told her that, I really want to do this, so if you could just guide me, just tell me what you want from me, and I'll deliver, I promise. So she gave me another chance and I could audition again, and I was selected. I went on to defeat the best speaker of my school and I won the first prize. I was very happy. I was elated. Thank you. Yeah. That victory was so heavy on me that I lost a lot of competitions after that. Fast forward to class 12th when so I had finished giving my board exams and I told myself that okay, I've told many stories to myself. So all this while I developed an inclination towards filmmaking. I knew that this is something which I want to do, but stories were not enough. So I told myself that okay, now you have to make a film and see whether you're capable of doing it or not. I borrowed a handycam. I requested my neighbor, to give me that handycam. I lied to them. I said it's a school project, and I asked a family to act in it. I almost used their entire family, their entire house to make that film, and I finally made a film. I felt very accomplished again, but because I was very ambitious, I compared it with a lot of other professional work which was being done, and I felt that my work was so bad. So again, I felt very defeated. During this time, I came across this concept of myo, or myo, in one of the, it's a Buddhist concept, which means that your life is perfectly endowed with everything that you need, and it has the power to revive. So when I looked at my life and all my circumstances around me, I felt that it is not perfectly endowed in any way. I didn't have money, I didn't have the right exposure, the right people, information, nothing with me. So I was just wondering, how is it perfectly endowed? So I discussed it with a lot of people. I was just after it that I have to understand how my life is perfectly endowed. And eventually I could understand something. So when I looked at my life again, I saw people just like I'm seeing right now. So different backgrounds, different stories, politics, emotions, different settings, everything around me. So I realized that actually my life has given me all the resources around me which I need in order to make a good film. Now whether I'm able to learn from it or not is a different question. I continued with this kind of a spirit, and I started learning from books and magazines, because at that time the internet was not so easily available, accessible as it is today. And I would talk to people, try to basically extract information from every possible source around me, and that's how I made my first film. After some time I didn't like it. I was again very disappointed with it. So I thought, why not make a film to crack a festival? A film festival, because that's where eventually an independent filmmaker looks forward to reaching. So I noticed all the formulas which people use, and I sort of made notes of it, and I made my first film in order to crack a festival. I failed again. It didn't even make it to that festival, forget winning any award. When I reflected, I felt that I was being just too desperate to tell a story, too desperate to win, too desperate to achieve something. So I just stopped there, and I sort of changed my attitude. I thought of making, at that time I was doing my MBA and I was a marketing student. So I thought, okay, let me make a smart product and see whether, that sells and I'm able to crack a festival. So I made a film which had a very catchy title. It had a simple story, and I ensured that I make it a very good looking film. I shot in all the beautiful locations around me because I happen to live in Shimla, so I had access to it. I almost shot out every good looking place, and I ensured the film looks beautiful. Guess what? I managed to crack a festival, and I was there. It was my first film festival in Kerala. When I went to that film festival and my film was in competition and I saw all the other films, I really wanted to run away and hide my face, because my film was the worst in the lot. Not just this, at the same time I also felt a lot of gratitude, because I thought that at least my life exposed me to, to what all great kinds of films there can be. So I still remember I came back to Shimla telling myself that I'm going to make another film, come to this festival yet again with one of my best works so far. Also, I was in the final year of my MBA, so I thought, if this is the time, either you make it or you're gone forever, because you'll have to take up a job after this, which I really feared. So I ended up making this film which you just talked about, Boys Don't Wear Nail Polish, with an attitude that I will give a unique experience to my audience. I don't want an award, I don't want to make a great film, but simply something which has an individual voice and something which can have a message for everyone to take back. The same film, it went on to win an award at the same festival next year. And that was one point where I felt that, okay, I had discovered a secret to originality, a secret to innovation, and a secret to all my awards. Because after that I never had to look back. My films kept on winning one award after another, and so if you ask me, do I really know how to make films? I don't know. Because whenever I tried to make one film, I only tried to gather the amount of information I needed to make that film. I just gave my life to it. And every time I finished making one film, I told myself that, okay, now your next project has to be one which you find impossible to make. So I challenged myself in that way that, I never made a film which was comfortable to make. Like all my films have been literally projects which I feared, that I wouldn't be able to ever make them. Anyways, so let's come back to the secret which, I sort of discovered to my originality, innovation, or awards, whatever you'd like to call it. This secret was actually comes in two ways. One was the understanding that you have to stop competing for awards and you have to stop trying to be the best, but you have to chase excellence rather than chasing any kind of an eventual effect of it. So that was the one thing which I did. Very early in my career, I told myself, I will not make films to entertain people. I refuse to give in to mediocrity, and I refuse to make films which will merely engage my audience for some time. But I wanted to give them a unique experience. I wanted to contribute to cinema in some way and give a film which will really respect my audience and make them feel enriched in some way. The second thing which I learned was that my life didn't have the spiritual strength needed in order to probably deal with my life. So I really believe that whenever your life needs that spiritual strength, it comes to you, literally on a platter. But the only thing is that it's in disguise. It's in form of a problem, and it will always come to you like that. So in my case, it was basically my depression, which I realized, I took almost 1 year to realize that I was going into depression, and I was already into it when I realized that, okay, I am not fine. So when I look back, I realized that it had been almost a year, and I could not recall that, that when was the last time I smiled. I could recall a lot of times when I would cry, when I would, literally give up, and there would be no hope in my life. And eventually, it also went to a point where I would have a lot of suicidal thoughts, but I felt completely hopeless. Anyways, what I'm trying to share is that when I fought my depression and when I overcame it, I could manifest the courage which I didn't have in my life. And when I looked at, when I literally embraced my problems and everything, all the challenges which my life was giving me, I could manifest the courage and the creativity to create a piece of work which I really thought, I would make after 10 years. It was a short film called Papa, which went on to win the Satyajit Ray Award. And by the way, I have to confess, I haven't seen a single Satyajit Ray's film till date. So, coming back to the stories, I think it is very important to tell ourselves the right kind of story which will help you sail through the storm which you are facing. In my opinion, there are 3 ways to look at a story. There is a story you tell yourself. It is your own subjective perception. You consciously try to tell yourself that story because you want to. But the truth is that this story is tainted by the philosophy you hold in your heart or your belief system. It's like saying how one person looks at a glass as half full and another as half empty. Then there is the story which we project to others, we try to tell others. It's a projection at the end of the day. And we all will try our best to tell those stories, and it could also be a lie. So, I could be convinced about a lie and I will go on telling that lie to the entire world, and nobody will come to know, at least that is what we think. Then the third kind is the story which others can see. Now, most of us spend literally all our time in preparing the stories we want to tell others, and we don't focus on the story we are telling ourselves. But I personally feel that because others can see, they will not buy it. Because you have to first tell yourself a good story. It's like saying, if I'm not convinced about my product or my film, I may tell a false story to myself and then also try to project it as a great film or a great product or a great story, but because others can see the story, not just which I am projecting to them, but the story I believe in, they are not going to buy it. So there is absolutely no escape in this system. I want to bring your attention to the fact that how important I feel is the stories we tell ourselves. And many of us feel that I don't have the right kind of story in my life. It's okay. Please go and find it. I think it is our responsibility to find the right kind of stories for ourselves. We must go, we must fight for it, we must strive for it and ensure that our life is filled with the right kind of stories which we need in our life. Thanks. I would like to share a few words from the writings of Nichiren Daishonin, who was a 13th century Japanese sage. He says that when a tree is transplanted, it will not topple if it has a firm stake to hold it up. Whereas even a tree which has grown in its place is, might just topple and fall down when winds blow. Even a feeble person will not fall down if those who are supporting him are strong. But a person of considerable strength might just trip on an uneven path when alone. If I have to look back and reflect on why I could make all these films, I want to confess that it is actually because of the people around me. Because they chose to believe in me much more than I did. The only credit I would like to take is that I chose them. And I ensured that I keep myself in their company, in the right kind of people, with the right kind of belief system, which is positive, motivating, and empowering each other. So basically, the last speaker was just talking about building a new civilization, a new society. I think a new civilization and society is built when I, as an individual, chooses to, for example, if I choose to reform the tenets which I hold in my heart, it has to start from me. And that is how it carries on. And all of us as youngsters, I think all of you are young, at least at heart, it is our moral responsibility to build this age, this new civilization which is of respect, in which basically of dedicated and committed people who can go out of the way to encourage each other. I'm not talking about forming groups of like-minded people who like to do one kind of work, like we have these photography clubs and everything. No, but people dedicated to respecting each other and going out of their ways to encourage and support each other. I think that is the kind of civilization we need to build. I would like to conclude again with the words of my mentor, who says that sometimes not getting defeated is actually a bigger accomplishment than merely winning. While I continue on my journey of making films in Shimla and taking them across the globe, if there is any one thing which I would like to take pride in, it is this, that I am not defeated. Thank you.